nickname was the Damsel of Death. Her story became a major motion picture, and her shocking killing spree makes Eileen Wuornos #3 on our list of notorious women.
Most of the time, we don't have a single female going out there and picking strong victims and shooting them down.
In December 1989, police found the body of 51-year-old Richard Mallory in the woods north of Ormond Beach, Florida. He'd been shot 4 times with a .22 caliber pistol. In the next 12 months, 5 more bodies were found in Central Florida.
Eileen killed most of her victims along the highways in Florida. She tended to choose middle-aged white men that were driving alone. She tended to hide the bodies in the forest and then take their vehicles, so all of their vehicles were conveniently found some distance from their body.
During their investigation, police came up with a composite sketch of a woman seen with some of the victims, but no name.
They weren't able to sort of put the pieces together and connect them all to this one woman, because think about it, it doesn't come straight to mind when you're looking at perhaps a profile of a serial killer that you'd be dealing and or looking for a woman.
The first real break in the case came in July 1990. Eileen Wuornos and her girlfriend Tyria Moore were driving in a car belonging to one of Eileen's victims.
She had allowed Ty to drive the car, and they were both drunk. And Ty wrecked the car. There were people that came into contact with them and were able to identify them, and then there were prints that were taken from the car.
A bloody handprint on the steering wheel helped police identify their suspect, 34-year-old drifter and prostitute Eileen Wuornos.
She was very much a child, very, very damaged. I used to wonder where I would have been at her age had I had a life like hers.
Eileen Carol Wuornos was born in 1956 in Troy, Michigan.
She had started out from a pretty rough life, pretty rough upbringing. Her mother gave her up when she was 6 months old to her grandparents. She had lost her original father and her adopted father, both committed suicide.
She was being sexually abused by her grandfather, also was having sexual relationships with her brother, and then gets kicked out of the house at like 13, 12 years old and is living in the woods.
At 16, Wuornos finally left Michigan and hit the road.
She went into prostitution because she really, quite frankly, didn't have a lot of skills, and she was already used to having sex and being used for sex, so it's kind of an easy transition, a way to survive in the world.
By the late 80s, Eileen settled in Florida, where she began a relationship with Tyria Moore.
Tyria Moore was the young woman that was the love of Eileen Wuornos' life. There wasn't anything that she wouldn't do for this woman. She continued to kill and to rob to support the lifestyle so she could take care of her young lesbian lover.
This is someone who accepted her as she was, and they were building a family.
But as the body count rose and the police dragnet tightened, Tyria left Eileen. Law enforcement finally caught up with Wuornos at a bar in Port Orange, Florida. She was arrested on January 9, 1991.
She was just drunk and sleeping in the back room of the last resort. The police started to catch up with her, and she just stayed put, wasted, hanging out in the same places that she had always been in. I think she allowed herself to be caught.
Police tracked Tyria to Pennsylvania and used her to coax a confession out of Eileen.
The police met with Tyria Moore, and it was her role to convince Lee to confess, because if she didn't take full responsibility for all of this, then Ty's family was going to be in trouble, and Ty was threatening suicide. So Lee confessed.
At her 1991 trial for the murder of Richard Mallory, Eileen gave an explicit description of being raped and tortured by the victim before she turned on him.
He said, "You're going to do everything I tell you to do, and if you don't, I'll kill you right now."
She always expected everyone to hurt her. That was part of her personality disorder, and she perceived that she was acting in self-defense.
I had no choice. I didn't have a chance to stop the clock and say, shoot him in the leg, shoot him in the foot, shoot him in the arm. And I'm not the greatest aimer. I did whatever I had to do at the quickest moment and without, just fast as possible.
When she was really angry, it was almost like it was starting at her feet and just moving up. I mean, her whole body would be involved in that anger. She had a lot of rage.
In January 1992, the 35-year-old hitchhiking hooker was convicted of first-degree murder. She was sentenced to death by lethal injection. Eileen was eventually convicted of 5 more murders. The convictions were appealed. Then Eileen had an apparent change of heart.
I know the hatred I have for human life in this world, and it would serve no purpose to spare me, because I know I'd kill again.
Eileen Wuornos almost always had some sort of agenda, and I think at that moment she wanted to be executed. And so she was actually kind of pursuing her own conviction.
On October 9th, 2002, Eileen Wuornos got her wish. She was put to death by lethal injection at the state prison in Stark, Florida.
At the time of her execution, there was a real question about her competence. Some of her actions seemed to reflect that there was a possibility that she had had a break with reality. Certainly, her farewell statement was disjointed and concerned me. It was something about, I'm leaving on the mothership and I will return like Independence Day, and it was just this rambling. It was very sad for me.
On February 29, 2004, actress Charlize Theron won an Oscar for her portrayal of Eileen Wuornos in the movie Monster.
I hoped that people would see it and it would change people's minds about her story, not to forgive her, but to understand that good people can become bad and that abuse manifests into something.
Coming up, you won't believe what this woman did in the name of love.